The world is hurtling towards the fourth industrial revolution, but there is a risk of Africa being left behind. Cloud computing is one of the keys or the key analysts of 4IR to accelerate efficiencies and future-proof growth prospects for African businesses. But many challenges remain, including a lack of infrastructure, semiconductor shortages and skills gaps. So, how can the continent harness this technology? Data integration specialist at Insight Consulting, Udhveer Sookraj, speaks to us this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you and thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit first about the impact and the opportunities of cloud computing for African businesses as well as economies on the continent.
Good afternoon, Udhveer. Good afternoon, viewers. Let's start with probably the most obvious one. Let's talk about load shedding. Load shedding has probably one of the biggest impact to business and personal life in South Africa at the moment. And if we have to look at traditional brick and mortar type of businesses, it's actually crippling the country's economy, and it's really limiting our ability to grow in business as a continent. If you have just to think about the investment that brick and mortar has to do just to keep the lights on in there, there's significant investment in infrastructure like inverters, generators, there's significant investment and costs that are coming as a result of this. So if we have to look forward to the opportunity then that provided with regard to cloud computing, we have elements such as e-store, the ability to do e-learning and e-working are just some of the solutions that have evolved in terms of cloud computing. So one has to unpack this and where we rank in terms of global skills. South Africa probably ranks as one of the highest in terms of the international space from a skills capacity. But if you think about what is really the distinguishing factor between us as South Africans, is that we have the ability to cross-skill and work across multiple different disciplines. Couple that to our entrepreneurial ability, I think that if we move those skill sets into the cloud element, we become truly global players.
But how do we then overcome the infrastructure issues that you've just mentioned, as well as some of the skills barriers for cloud adoption, and not just in South Africa, but in other parts of the rest of the African continent as well?
I think largely it's a case more of awareness. I would say that in the initial phases that we had some serious barriers to entry. There wasn't really cloud infrastructure within South Africa or Africa itself. And as with most things, initially the cost of computing in the cloud was, call it, highly prohibitive to most individuals. I'm glad to say that South Africans are actually one of the most prolific users of cloud technologies. One has to look at our presence in social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And on our personal levels, we tend to excel in these areas, and we use it as a great staging platform to engage. Now, if one has to start looking at how cloud has evolved, cloud's becoming more commercialized, cloud's becoming more open to everyone out there. So the cost of cloud computing has significantly dropped, and the lack of the monopoly that existed previously has also been demolished. So cloud is freely available, cloud is very powerful. So I'd say cloud it's in the present. If I have to look at the skills aspect, once again, this is where South Africans really shine. In that we have the ability to play on these platforms and use the various tools that are available out there. If I had to look back at the area of data science, I would say that South Africa 3 or 4 years ago may have been at the tail end of that wave. If we had to look at data assets and data cloud adoption, we weren't really experts in the area of data warehousing. And again, tracking back to those times, it would take us between 2 to 3 years to set up a data warehouse. Cloud technologies exist right now that, we've been building data warehouses in as little as, hours or days. And that is through the large tool sets that are available as part of the cloud packages. And because they are international standard, what it is doing is it's upgrading South Africa's educational abilities to that is exactly on the world stage, whereas we have already got the knowledge and thinking to play in those areas.
So you've spoken about the fact that it's not monopolized and the costs are drastically lower over the last few years. With that, what role then does data strategy play in maximizing the value of cloud computing in Africa?
I think that's probably the most fundamental and key element in what I now call an open market. Once we have a relatively democratic market, we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of players. And something like a data strategy is extremely key to being able to get the maximum return on investment. And this is particularly important when you tend to come from an environment that's largely entrepreneurial and need to return the maximum return on investment. So cloud has various scales, various tiers, and you could very easily find a solution that could be prohibitively expensive because you don't understand exactly the needs that you want. Or you may find that cloud computing is not as efficient because all of the necessary tools that you require to get into that cloud isn't available. So the idea here is that one should probably invest in a strategy, just a direction of what you want to achieve and what is possible, and align this to a cloud strategy so that you are looking at the best fit for your business.
Yeah, and of course, automation is going to play a key role in this particular instance as an important enabler for successful cloud computing. Talk us through that.
If I should look back at what I would say would be the elements that have traditionally restricted cloud computing, it's the fact that cloud exists and it's a very powerful tool, but how do we get into the front door? And that has always been through taking the data and getting it into the cloud so that we could start to use the various tools and the various techniques available in there. And that prohibitively was the barrier to entry. Now, when it comes down to this is the element of technology that requires the most effort. And I'm happy to say that, once again, cloud has come in with a large number of tool sets that support its underlying platform that is largely focused on automation. Now, automation has existed, and once again, it's the technology that's evolved from the point that you needed to have specialist skill to that which requires nothing more than drag and drop. So I referred earlier to the element of creating something like data warehouses. If I had to look back at the methodology we used 3 years ago, it involved setting up automated processes largely that we had to code. In the modern instance, we are using technologies that are so-called drag and drop, and technologies that are even more powerful that can stream data and bring data into your cloud in real time. A good example of that would be the type of technology that we use on our own smartphones. We have a seamless, non-impact, zero-footprint client that sends our phone data into a secure cloud, be it an iCloud or a Google Cloud, that works seamlessly in the background. And should the device be damaged, lost, or the victim of theft, we are able to restore this information up until the last point without actually needing to invest in needing to back this up or manual processes in it. So automation is the key driver to any successful platform.
Yep. Thank you very much for those insights. That was data integration specialist at Insight Consulting, Udhveer Sookraj, joining us this afternoon.